Okay. All right, well, hi everybody. Thanks and welcome to our tutor training class. My name is Tammy Jackson. I'm the Executive Director for Literacy Volunteers of Southern Connecticut. This is Tim O'Sullivan, and he's one of our board of directors and also one of the tutor trainers that we have at the center. This year, we're having to do things a little bit differently, so it's been a little bit of a challenge to reach out to different people and find people in different ways, not having that personal touch. So we've had to redo some of our classes and do much more through digital means, which has been good and difficult, but we're all just trying to be patient, and we're all just kind of learning together. So I'm really glad to finally put a face to your applications, because we haven't actually gotten to meet face to face. And usually that would be the time that, you know, we would kind of get to know each other a little better, and I can introduce you about the center and what we do. So I do have a little presentation so I can share with you a little bit about who we are and what we do at the center. So first, thank you for your interest in becoming a tutor to immigrants in our community. We were created in 1994, so we've been around. We celebrated our 25th anniversary last year, and we are now in Milford and Stratford. This is our Fanny Beach Community Center location. We're in Woodmont. It's a really nice location up the street from Anchor Beach. So our mission is to provide services at no cost to any individual who wishes to learn the English language or enhance their reading, writing, speaking, and math skills necessary to lead productive lives in our community. So 36 million adults in the United States can't read, write, or do basic math above a third grade level. So that's a big deal when we're looking at people in our community and in ways that we can help and assist them. About 50% of the immigrants that come to the US lack high school education, which of course then limits their access to jobs, citizenship, and it's a more vulnerable way of living and possibly poverty. So we try to help rise them up so that they can read and write and succeed in their positions. Whoops. There we go. So like I said before, we're fairly new to Stratford. We've been in Milford 25 years. We went to Stratford a couple of years ago because we realized that people were coming to our center from that area. So we are also at the Stratford Library, the Milford Library, and Fanny Beach Community Center. So last year we tutored over 120 students. We had 70 volunteer tutors. Anybody have any idea how many languages are spoken in Milford or Stratford? So most people don't realize how diverse our communities are. There's roughly, and they change every year, about 46 to 53 languages spoken in Milford and Stratford. So we are becoming and have been very diverse communities. So it's been fun getting to know so many of them and learning more about their cultures and where they come from. So we have 3 different types of programs. We have adult literacy, children's literacy, and our computer literacy programs. So we run our tutor training class in Milford and Stratford pre-COVID-19. So we do 2 in Milford, 2 in Stratford. This year we're doing it through Zoom, and we're recording so that we will be able to reach other people at different times. So for example, if someone else wants to jump into the class next week, they can review this video and they can catch up quickly. So we're hoping that it'll be a really useful tool as a way to reach more people. But that's our Milford class. And when you guys all finally make your way to Fanny Beach Community Center, this is our boardroom. We have a whiteboard back there too, which is really nice. We are mostly known for one-on-one tutoring. We're affiliated with Pro Literacy of America. And so there's literacy programs all over the country. There's many in Connecticut, and most of them tutor in group settings. We're really lucky that we have such a philanthropic community that we are able to have so many volunteers, so we're able to assist our students one-on-one. So many people come to us for that purpose. Just some of our other matches, some are at the Fanny Beach Community Center, some are at the Stratford Library. And then this is just an example of one of our students. This was Thana. She lived in Saudi Arabia, and well, she lived in Syria, and during the revolution, she and her husband and her children fled. Her husband didn't want to come to the United States, but she knew living in Saudi Arabia that her daughters weren't going to have any kind of freedom. So she left and came to the United States, where she's raising her kids. So she's one of our students, and she was a journalist in Syria. And so that is one of her goals here, to become a better writer in English. We also have some group classes. There's 4 that we hold right now, 1 every day. We have an advanced level class, a beginner, intermediate, and a conversation. So Tim will talk about those more, because you'll be invited to attend one of those in one of your weeks. So you'll get to meet some of our students and our tutors. Just another one of our classes. At one time, we did have a class that had children also in it. We had a daycare, but as some of those students ended up succeeding, they were getting better jobs and they weren't able to come anymore, which was kind of disappointing for us, because we like to see their successes. But it was also great for them, because that meant that was their level of success, is that they were ready to move on. Every year we have a multicultural celebration in April. This year we postponed, but hopefully we will be able to have something in the fall. It's an opportunity where we celebrate our student accomplishments and their diversity. It's also the month that we celebrate volunteer appreciation. So our students and tutors get together, and we ask that our students write an essay once a year, and this is an opportunity for them to get together and read them out loud. This is the first time that they're ever speaking English in public, so it's really exciting to see that. And it's a potluck, so everybody brings sampled foods from their countries, and they get to talk about them, and so it's a really nice way to bring everybody together. And who doesn't love food? We also have a computer literacy class. It doesn't run as frequently as it did in the past. We kind of set it up when students or tutors are in need, but we do have the facility to host a program like that. We also have children's programs. So one of our goals is to improve children's literacy levels with a big focus on reading. So we do a Books for Babies program, where we donate books to one of the local pediatricians, and he gives them out to all the new mothers. There's information inside about why it's important to read to children at a young age, and it gives them a free book. We also do books for birthdays, so we partner with several of our local agencies, like Head Start, Team, some of those where they may have some lower level readers, or maybe homes that don't have as many books in them, and we try to give them books on their birthday with their name on it, and do a little celebration. So it's kind of nice for them to start building their home libraries. And then we also have a preschool story hour. There's 7 classes that we read in right now between West Haven and Milford, and it's just another fun program that we've had for 25 years. So how do we prove our success? We use the Challenger curriculum. So as a nonprofit, we don't have the kind of funds that, some organizations may have to have all these long, like the CASAS testing and things like that. Those cost thousands. We just simply don't have it. So the Challenger series is a series of books that aligns with the CASAS testing. And so as you progress in each book, it will slowly increase and improve, their levels for vocabulary. And so when we match you with a student, you will get a book, your student will get a book. And all that we ask for that is that you use it at least once a month. Some people like it, they use it every week, but we like that you use it at least once a month, so we can at least kind of track progress and know how your student is progressing. And we also prove our success by accomplishments, citizenships, driver's licenses. These are just a few of our samples that have gotten theirs, our friends that have gotten their citizenships recently. So it's always exciting, and we'd like to celebrate with them. So just to put into perspective, I'm the only paid employee at Literacy Volunteers. Last year we had over 8,000 volunteer hours, so it just kind of puts into perspective the kind of work that we're doing and the amount of people that are really helping and support the center. So some of the things that our students say, you know, I'm not afraid to speak anymore. When I started to learn at the center, I could only carry on basic conversations. Now that doesn't happen. They learn to read and write, and some have passed the citizenship and they're loving their new homeland. So we love to hear those kind of success stories and hear how they are having their new life in the United States. So why is literacy important in our community? Low literacy can be connected to almost every socioeconomic issue in the US: jobs, growth in the workplace, school success, community interaction, involvement, self-esteem, of course, and just belonging in the community. So how do we survive? So we have a few events that we hold. We do civic donations, corporate donations, fundraisers, grants. So we don't receive any federal or state funding, and all of our services are free. So this is one of our events, and this, luckily we were able to hold this in March. The state shut down the week after, so I was thrilled that we were able to hold this event. This is the Leprechaun Leap. So I think this year it was, I don't know, maybe 32 degrees in the water. But we usually have a large crowd of people that raise money for us, and people get pledges, and it's a really fun and very, very quick fundraiser. The next one is the Neon Night Run, which we will be changing. That's in July. As you can see, there is not any social distancing here. So I think we will be having a virtual one where people will be able to run and walk at their own leisure and then post their times. But we are, we're developing that now and trying to figure out what's the best and safest way to go about that. So how do we reach people that don't speak English? We're on social media, we're on Facebook, we do a lot with emailing and websites, and then we have a 7-language mailer that has different languages that hopefully we can reach people that need our help. And of course, we couldn't do it without all the partners, the City of Milford and Stratford, Rotary Clubs, Businesses United Way. These are all groups that help and support us every year, and we couldn't do it without them. And of course, our greatest partners are you. To put it simply, we couldn't support our students without the time that you will put into helping your student. So that is it on my end. I will turn it over to Tim because he has the whole tutor training process. I know that it's always intimidating when you're trying something new, and we always like to tell our new tutors that as nervous as you may be or uncomfortable about trying something new, your students are way more nervous. So everybody has been in the same place that you are, and you know, a lot of questions are, I don't speak another language, I don't know, you know, this or that. And somehow it just all works out, and Tim will give you all the training that you need in order to feel comfortable and able to work with your student. I am in the office now, so I went back last week. I'm there in the mornings and sometimes into the afternoon, so you can reach me by email at any time or call me on the phone. If there's a time that you need to pick up books or you need, you know, help with your curriculum, or I'm not sure where to start, you can certainly reach us at any time, and I can certainly help either getting something together. I've done some drop-offs with people, or they've come to the hall and we do I leave it on a table so there's not any connection. So I'm here for you, and certainly can work with you in the best way so that your experience with us is a good and happy one. All right. So with that, I will turn off my screen and I'll turn it over to Tim.
All right, awesome job, Tammy. Thanks a lot. Sure. And hello, everybody. My name is Tim, and I'll be your tutor trainer for today. I do want some participation during this class because normally this would be a class. So if you could unmute yourselves, that'd be great. And don't worry, I can do video editing, so any mistakes we make, I can cut out. All right, awesome. So let me screen share my PowerPoint. Right, very nice. Let's start the presentation from the beginning. All right, so can everybody see this screen with like the woven fibers?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So welcome to week 1 of our new tutor training. I will be your instructor, as I said. So just a little bit about myself. I've been volunteering with the Literacy Volunteers of Southern Connecticut for 3 years. I started in February of 2017, and it really changed my life. I believe that this work is really rewarding. I know Tammy mentioned that maybe there's some nervousness about starting something new. Honestly, I think the way most people feel about this is it's a really fun experience. You meet people, you make, I actually don't know an exception of when our volunteers haven't met a student that they've worked with and they haven't formed a lasting friendship. I'm not saying that there isn't separation. So my first student, he moved, but we still stay in contact over text. And the students are very appreciative of what you do to help them in this environment. So most of my experience is not actually with the Literacy Volunteers of Southern Connecticut. As a hobby, I teach English privately online, which was really nice when the pandemic forced us all to stay home. I was like, well, at least one part of my life isn't uprooted. So I've accumulated about 61,000 minutes of teaching English online, and I've met 1,007 different students from all over the world. So I got my globe right here, which I like to use to visualize who I'm talking to during the day. So I hope I can bring some of the feedback I've gotten from students to you as far as what actually is helpful for them, what is practical. I don't like preparing very much because it takes time. I kind of like having the skills that if I meet somebody, I can help them and it's spontaneous. So I'm going to try and bring that in our program. But I did get certified to teach English in a classroom, and I worked in New York City doing that. It was temporary jobs, like in the winter and the summer. So I have 180 hours of classroom experience. You can see there it says almost 3 times that in lesson planning, because lesson planning is actually very time consuming. You have to consider a lot of variables, especially when you're not working with one student. You might be working with a class of people with various levels of English or any language. We happen to be talking about teaching English. So there's a lot of planning and research involved, but we're going to try to take that out so that you know the tools you need to make this fast and practical. Why did I start this? It's because as another hobby, I like learning languages. Currently, I'm trying to do Russian and Japanese, and I'm also using online tutoring. So I'm doing both ways. I'm offering English instruction, but I'm taking Russian instruction. I want to add Japanese. So I kind of know the advantages and disadvantages from both perspectives, and we'll see if I can incorporate that into our training. Okay, so moving on. This is the roadmap for our 5-week program. So we'll spend some time here just so we can assimilate what's going to happen. I think it's very simple. There's not going to be anything very complicated. You'll see later on that basically you have all the equipment you need because you're a native English speaker. You are a master of a skill. It's in high demand. Many people in the world are trying to learn it. So since you have that, you are qualified to do this job. This is almost a formality. I'm just trying to make your life easier. So week 1, that's today. We're going to do an overview, as you can see. We'll talk about the importance of the tutor and what the tutor is actually like, the role of the trainer. I have speaking in bold because it's important. You'll see. So next week, we're going to basically do a little bit about introduction to the theory of how to plan a lesson. It's called scaffolding. So if you've ever seen a building that was being repaired or built, you have to create this structure that brings you up to the top. The metaphor which I'll explain again next week, is basically if you have an objective or a goal, you have to build a structure to reach it. It's the same way with your lesson plans. So we'll talk about that. Week 3 is what makes your life easy. We'll talk about tools for teaching, how to play games, which are good for classes. Now, we will probably be private tutors, but who knows? I started as a private tutor and then became a classroom teacher. And I still think understanding how games are useful is a very important component of English teaching. We'll talk about screen sharing, because you can't get away with it. Split screen, if you are screen sharing, right? Whiteboard tools online and articles, which is a really fundamental resource, really common resource for teaching students, right? Week 4, we're going to learn one more component for how to structure lessons, which also asks the student to do something outside of the lesson. And we're going to wrap it up with week 5 and basically put together some lesson plans and maybe talk about some of the features of English, because every language is unique. Different students have different problems with English or different interests, for example. My Saudi Arabian students, for example, will very frequently, the students are completely unrelated to each other, but they'll come and they'll ask, what is the difference between this word and this word, every time. It's a really interesting question. Like all and entire. It's like, well, good question. What is the difference? But yeah, so different people from different language backgrounds have different focuses in English. Okay, let's stop here just for some questions. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Okay, let's go ahead. I do want to ask you to do some assignments, but don't worry, they're minuscule. I know Tammy sent you an email with the link to this meeting, and I think attached to that email were 5 weeks of resources. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let me switch my screen share so we can look at that. So I have it open also. Okay, looks like I have week 3 open. I'm going to share this. Let's go back to the top. Okay, so can everybody see this example document?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Week 3 intermediate competencies. This is what we use to train tutors, and it's a very valuable resource. It's very broad, so I think you would benefit a lot from going through the theoretical content as well as the exercises, but I'm not asking you to do that. I am asking you to look at it, so each time we have a lesson, please look at that week's corresponding document and come with a question. That's how we're going to start the lesson. I think it will facilitate some discussion and maybe elucidate some of what's going on here. Because I don't plan to spend much time about intermediate competencies, and I'll mention why at the end of today's lesson. So let's return back to the PowerPoint. Okay, that's not the PowerPoint I want. That is the main screen. New share. This. Okay. So after week 2, I am going to ask everyone to try to attend one of our online classroom offerings. So like Tammy said, we have 4 right now, and I want to show you where you can find the Zoom links to that. If you go to our website, so I'm going to open that up in a browser. I have that right here. This is our webpage, and right on the home page, we have the classrooms and the links to those Zoom meetings. We are recommending the Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday class based on attendance currently. And the assignment is simply attend and observe, take some notes, and be prepared to discuss your experience. Okay. Any questions?
So these classes are available at any time, or are there a specific time and day?
Specific time and day. So we have that information right here. It says Monday, 6:30, conversation class. And then the Wednesday is 12:30, intermediate. Thursday, 10:30, women's class. Okay?
Okay.
Good question.
And so, if I may ask, Timothy, so it really doesn't matter which one, any or all, as long as we just attend them and then take notes and be prepared to kind of discuss what went on, correct?
Yes. This is happening after week 2, where we talk about the intro to lesson structure, and you'll see a teacher in action. And it may be very different. I don't know what they're doing that day. It may be very different from the method I go over. But we can talk about what worked, for example, or how you felt generally. Oh, this looks great, for example.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so moving back to the presentation, that would be this one. Okay, week 3, simple. That week we'll talk about screen share tools. We use Zoom, and I like Zoom, but every screen share tool for a platform like Skype or Google Hangouts, for example, each one has its own feel and nuances, and Zoom is counterintuitive to me, just like Apple products are kind of counterintuitive to me. I've had them, and I like them, but I guess my brain doesn't work the same way. I don't know why I can use Adobe to edit videos, but I have trouble using Apple's Final Cut Pro. Different people prefer different things. But we're going to troubleshoot the online experience. So if you are tutoring online, I want to work with you to make sure that you can choose a platform and you'll know how to use it. It could be your phone. So if you want to use FaceTime on your phone, that works. But we'll see what works for us. So we'll talk about that when we get there, and we'll schedule a time probably in the week between the meeting on week 3 and week 4 to work together. And you can also see we'll prepare an activity to share with the class, but we'll talk about that assignment that week. All right, last one. If we can arrange it, let's go back. If we can arrange it, I want you to go through a real lesson with one of our students. It'll be simple. Let me give you an example of what I have in mind. So new share, we'll go to Google Chrome. Also, browsers, in my opinion, have different advantages. So I'll use Google Chrome for this one. And go to ngu.com. So based on my experience with students, this is one of the most popular websites for learners in the world right now. That was the main page, and I clicked on materials, and they have all this free material. Let me go back just for a second, because I want to show you something that sometimes confuses people. You see this and you think that maybe you have to pay. No, you don't. It's almost like a donate button. Okay, so materials. Click on materials, and they have things that you can filter by level. So maybe we don't want to work there. We want to work in the intermediate level, something like this. It's going to cut back on what you'll see. So let's just make it as general as possible. Okay, so they have lots and lots of stuff for kids, for vocabulary, for exam prep. The one that I use in the student's request is daily news. This is going to make your life really easy. So forget about lesson prep, here it is. You can choose these relevant articles. They're current, or you can go back to past years. and you can select anything that they're interested in. Like this is proficient. It's very rare for a student to basically ask for proficient. That's as advanced as it gets. Let's do something simple. So Nintendo Switch is sold out. It's categorized by level. So if you can guess that your student will do well at an intermediate level, then you can choose this article or they can request it. And it has vocabulary with the definition and example sentences. Really good to work with. I recommend after the student understands the definition and sees the examples, ask them to use it. It's the only way that the information will stick in their mind. If you read it passively and you say, good, okay, let's go on, they won't remember that word. You want to create that first experience of them using the word. So this is, again, just a quick example. So you can go through the relevant vocabulary for the article, and then you can have a reading activity. And then it has leveled questions. This is basically comprehension questions. Then you can have more abstract questions about discussion, more abstract, and then maybe you can talk about this quote, for example. Do you agree with this person's quote? So that is what I have in mind for your assignment in week 4. We'll arrange a meeting with one of our students. Maybe it will be the student you work with, and you can just go through one of these articles. It might take 30 minutes, might take 15 minutes, depending on how quickly you move. So yeah, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, and that's everything as far as assignments is concerned. Let's talk about today's topic. So I want your input on this. How do you think lessons will be different for a tutor as opposed to a teacher? What is the difference? Can I have a volunteer? Remember, I can edit. If you say something wrong, I'll just edit it out. Don't worry. Do you think the tutor is working in front of a class or the tutor is working one-on-one?
One-on-one.
That's a big difference. It really changes the role. So, with that in mind, how do you think the lessons will be different for a tutor compared to a teacher?
More personalized, I would think.
Yeah, and also I would think that the teacher would have to account for so many different variables in the levels of the students that they're teaching in front of, I guess.
Excellent. Ruth?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. Barbara and Tom, you're both exactly right.
Okay, can we just end now then?
Yeah, so let's leave. Now so when you meet
We're
your
done.
students, you realize that you have to tailor to that student, and that any abstract theory I tell you probably isn't going to fit. And that's why I decided to offer those readings, those weekly documents as a resource, because it's very broad and it's all true. It's all useful. I don't know about true, so I didn't read every line, so don't quote me on that. But it's a worthy document. But in my experience, there's always this personal element in that as a tutor, you should be tailoring the learning experience to who you're working with. Okay. So let's talk about the tutor. I think this image says a lot. The tutor is a very similar role to the personal trainer in the gym. Question is, what does the personal trainer do for the client? Or why is the personal trainer qualified to be in this position to guide the client? So what is language? Again, this is my opinion, which I think is true. Language is a skill. So any kind of skill, I have 3 examples here. I have 2 athletic and 1 artistic skill. They are basically the result of accumulated effort and practice over a long period of time. We are in a unique position because due to where we were born, we are the master of a skill. So each of us is a master of English. We're a native speaker. It's an enormous amount of knowledge. Let me give you just a view. On my bookshelf, you can see a mountain of flashcards. So each of those is a stack, if you can see my camera, each of those is a stack of flashcards about this big. You see?
Mhm.
This here is elementary Russian. So this is not even intermediate. So the amounts of things you have to know for a language is enormous. I made flashcards also for calculus, just to compare the size of information. And the amount of stuff you need to know for calculus, about this much. It's not even the full stack. This is like 1 chapter. So the amount of information that's in your brain is substantial. I put it this way. You know the name of everything in the universe in English. And that gives you an advantage. You can hear what is correct and incorrect, which allows you to offer feedback. Without that power, you would make a lot of mistakes as a language learner. It's very important for you to, for example, I could read a Russian article, but not until I started working with tutors online did I know how many pronunciation mistakes I was making. And I would never know. So you offer that feedback in the training experience. Without it, I think the efficiency will be very, very slow in comparison. I'm not saying without hard work you can't do it by yourself, but with our help as a tutor, it really does facilitate the learning experience. Yesterday, we had our continuing education workshop, and the concept was, what does it take to learn a language? And I phrased it, one of the components. There were 6 components, but the core of the beginning was what I call the gym concept of training. It's for any skill development, you should look at it as kind of like going to the gym. You should do it to the extent that it keeps your body healthy, and you have to do it with enough frequency that you make progress. Each training session builds on the last, and you have to, when you go there, do something that actually puts a stress on your body in a healthy way. For intellectual skills, whether it's music or it's language, it's very similar. You're going to have to go there so many times a week and train your brain, hit your brain in a way that's intense enough that you make progress. You can't kind of go about it in a lackadaisical way. You have to have a purpose. You kind of have to be serious about the learning. Otherwise, you'll waste a lot of years. I've worked with students in the center who have been here for 12 years and haven't made progress in 12 years. Which, it's almost as if they lived in their own country because they didn't go out and use the language, or they used what they knew and survived with that much. That's fine. Basically means that maybe they don't even need to increase their English skills if what they know is already allowing them to facilitate their life. However, apparently they still have this ambition in the back of their mind. I want to be a master of this skill. But 12 years have gone by and they haven't made progress. Why? Probably lack of structure, lack of intensity, or lack of consistency. Just like going to the gym. Now, we recorded that video also, and I'll be editing that and uploading it to our website. So I recommend that if you're interested, that you watch it so you understand most of what I have to say about this idea. But for today, I think we can leave it at that. Consider the time horizon also. So that's why I have the calendar here. You are going to be doing this over a long period of time if you're the language learner. So only do what you can handle. Okay, so question to the class. How does the personal trainer help the client? And I mean the actual personal trainer that you have in your brain, that image of the guy at the gym or the girl at the gym who assists you with your workout. How does that person help the client?
They help motivate them to keep at it.
Very nice.
Sharing their knowledge on what, I mean, there are certain things what you have an idea of what you want to achieve, but they can specify specific movements or ideas of what to do.
That's right. Very nice.
Yeah, and I agree with what both the ladies said, as well as, I mean, I guess to be able to assess your capabilities and to push you just far enough, but without putting undue, harm or stress or whatever.
All right, terrific. So yeah, maybe you guys were right. We should end here. So yeah, if you can translate the idea of what a personal trainer does to what you're going to be doing as a language tutor, it's the same thing. So key values of the tutor/trainer. Identify the position of the client. So this person has come to you asking for help. Where are they on their journey? Number 2, identifies the goals of the client. Maybe the client doesn't have an idea. Now you can have a discussion about, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Why do you need this? Are you trying to prepare for something specific, like an exam or a job interview? Or do you have a very broad ambition? So I live here, my life is stable, I want to be a master. Okay. So number 3, helps plan a way forward. This might be the most structured or time-intensive component, depending on how much you want to help your client. But if you do form a plan about how to attain their goal, remember to incorporate the 2 highlights we had about the gym concept of training. You have to have that continuity. So that's basically consistency. You don't want to ask too much of the client. If it's the personal trainer, don't make it painful because they won't come back. Even if it's not painful, maybe they're highly motivated, you can injure yourself. You don't want that also. And for an intellectual activity, that could mean a number of things, but probably it means that you messed with your prioritization. If you have a family or if you have a career, you can't put those things on the back burner to master a language. You only have so many hours in a day. Okay, so yeah, again, frequency and time horizon. Be honest with yourself and with your client about when you can see results at a healthy pace. And then again, intensity or quality of training. Again, I recommend you watch the video online to go more in depth about how you can accomplish that. But variety of input is important. You want to hit the brain from different angles. It's important to use the language because language is something practical. Information by itself is inert. You need to incorporate it into use in order for what you learn to be practical once you leave the lesson. Also, focus and concentration. So this is kind of like self-control. If you're doing something, you should probably be focused because you can accomplish in 15 minutes what could take, or I should say, what could waste 2 hours. Okay, so number 4 is a mystery. What do you think it is? Someone said it. I was happy that someone said it, but it's not on the board now. What could number 4 be?
Motivation.
That's right. So number 4, motivates and encourages the client. How do you think you could do that?
Positive reinforcement, I guess.
Yes.
Talk about, I mean, what they will be able to do with what they learn.
Mm-hmm. Focus on the goal, the benefits, comfort and trust also. So if the student knows that you care about them, it means a lot, and that will make them want to come to, well, actually make them want to make them happy to be in this country and to be using this language. Okay, so we're almost done. Final chapter for today. Speaking as the core of language learning. Here we have a chart about the 6 primary skills of language. If you look at a test of English, such as the TOEFL exam, test of English as a foreign language, or the IELTS exam, the Integrated English Language Testing System, I think that's what it stands for. One, I think, is created by American institutions. One is created by the University of Cambridge in England. Both are used by companies or universities to assess the level of a student. Excuse me. And if the student scores a 7 on the IELTS, this I know for a fact, it qualifies them to learn at an American university. So it says that now you can study in English, basically. Otherwise, we don't want to take your money unscrupulously, because probably you will struggle and we don't want to put you in that position. I have 6 here because I believe that vocabulary and grammar are separate from these 4. Those tests will look at reading, writing, listening, and speaking, but I think vocabulary and grammar are separate. You can understand the groupings. One is visual.
I have a question.
Please.
I can't, our little pictures are on the right-hand side of the screen, so I can't see whatever the 3rd box is at all.
Uh-huh.
Is everyone's that way?
I think you
Slide
can
it
move the
across to the
box.
other side.
What?
I think
Can
you
I
can move the box.
Move it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it on the left instead, because I've been missing the right-hand side of everything.
Oh, no.
No, just move it across.
Okay. How about now, Barbara?
Okay, I moved it over.
Perfect. So yeah, you can understand the grouping here. We have the visual skills, something that you are basically communicating information in a visual way, either receiving it and reading or putting it on the paper and writing, or the auditory methods, if you're listening or if you're speaking. The systems, vocabulary you might think of as being isolated pieces of information in English because the words don't change so much. But other languages, such as Russian, have 6 cases, for example. So yes, we have the base form of the word, but depending on its function in the sentence, it changes shape, both in sound and spelling. So their grammar is attached to the word. English is not the same. English is an analytical language. We don't have to talk about that now. Whereas Russian is a synthetic language, which means it's much more amorphous. But yeah, so we have these skills. My question is, which skill here do you think is most important to practice?
Speaking.
That's right, Tom. Speaking is the most important. But why? Why is practicing speaking most efficient?
Well, I think you answered your own question because you're practicing. You're applying it. I think. I don't know.
True.
You don't need to bring in the alphabet or something. You're just speaking it. You don't have to worry about the actual words on written paper.
That's an interesting point. Barbara, any ideas?
It's just something you use more often. You're always listening or speaking.
Interesting. Yeah, you guys gave me some new ideas that I didn't think about before. They say that we receive our language as babies by listening. So really there is that emphasis on the start of language coming from that auditory entry point. But about speaking, it's really about speaking being the most bang for your buck. You could spend 12 years reading English books and never hearing or saying the words. So you wouldn't know how to say it, and if someone said it to you, you wouldn't be able to recognize the words. The speaking has that vocabulary component, but at the same time, you are using it in a communication context. So let me go item by item. So the full system of language is heard and produced in real time. We said before you need intensity in order to produce progress. How you can create that is by putting that communication goal and time pressure on the individual. So if you're writing, probably when we've had experience writing in our academic days, we can rephrase things as many times as we want before we're satisfied. But in a communication situation, when we're speaking, we have to be clear and quickly. So that's one, time pressure. There's comprehensive input in a practical context. So let's go back. Studying vocabulary is important, but you will get that in context by the speaking interaction. So listening, yes, you will receive words, but you will have an idea in your mind when you're trying to speak another language, and you will have to ask, what is that thing? I'm talking about this thing. Do you know what this is? And say case. So you're filling in real time. Okay. Now, the brain learns by forming connections. If you look at a brain cell, it has tentacles that spread out in many directions, forming connections with other brain cells. You want to accomplish that in your learning process. Before I said that data by itself, information by itself is kind of inert, but if you have those words that you're learning, or those words that you're hearing in a context, in a full sentence, that is the learning experience that not only has the word with its meaning, but the word with how you used it in your memory. Over time, that will build an English-speaking machine in your brain, or any language. Okay. There's another benefit these days, which is because of the internet, speaking is a lot more available than previously. You can find a whole world of people who are willing to share cultures, and it's a great way to meet people, help people, earn money if you're interested, but make friends and learn at the same time. So as far as what you could be practicing that will benefit you the most for the amount of time you invest, speaking is what I recommend. Okay. Therefore, if you're working with your students, you should utilize speaking in one form or another. So I have 4 classifications of speaking on this slide. Free conversation, facilitated or leveled conversation, conversation games, or the audiolingual method. Free conversation is useful if the student is confident in English. Probably that requires skill. Alternatively, some personalities don't have a problem, even if they're not skilled, speaking confidently or speaking freely. Your feedback about what is being said incorrectly in that context is important, but the free conversation exercise doesn't require anything artificial. You just talk, very relaxed. Facilitated or leveled conversation. This is where, for one reason or another, the conversation will not proceed without an imbalance of effort from you. You will probably have to continue asking questions. The student doesn't know how to begin. They're not confident to begin, perhaps. So you can facilitate the conversation by asking a question they can understand that's not out of thin air. Like, how was your day? I did this. Oh, how long have you been doing that? Instead of just, bombarding them with something random. Conversation games is something I've been trying recently because one of the platforms I used added a feature, which is really nice. You can alter the screen mid-conversation so that there's a game presented. And I think it's actually really nice. So a conversation game is something fun that kind of takes the pressure off of performance, because now it's not so much about the social interaction, it's about the goal of the game. So it might be something simple. I played with an 8-year-old from China, guess the animal. Okay, it's like 20 questions. You think in your mind, eagle. That's what I thought. And he asks, it can fly? And I say, can it fly? Right? And then I say, yes, it can fly. And so on. That helps the student practice basic question asking, because even this student can understand me, which means his vocabulary is very developed for his age. But basic questions would be, again, is it can fly? And that's not grammatical, which means somewhere along the learning process, the structure of the question, why we say it a certain way, has not been drilled down in his brain. So this game where you repeat the question structure over and over again is fun, and he learns at the same time. It's pretty awesome. Other games like collaborative story, playing with my intermediate students. Like I say, okay, so yesterday I went to the bar and now it's your turn. And then I ran into my friend Olivia. And with that, you can be very creative. Sometimes you have a problem where the student has a busy life, or I don't mean to say this, maybe they have a boring personality, and it's really hard to like have a conversation. Oh, so how was your day? I didn't do anything. It's like, oh, you want to play a game? So yeah, when we get to week 3 and we talk about our tools, maybe we'll look at some games. The audiolingual method is something which I discovered when I started to learn Russian, and I highly recommend it as the starting point for when you're trying to learn a language. The audiolingual method in the textbook requires that the instructor speaks both languages. So we can't ask that of everybody, and it wouldn't be possible for me. If I've met 1,000 students, well, I don't know, maybe only 5 of them were from Russia, if you can believe it. So the only person I can help with the audiolingual method from the textbook is a Russian speaker. But let me explain what that is. The audiolingual method is when you say a phrase in the language that the student knows, and then you say the equivalent phrase in the language they're trying to learn. So I can show you a Russian example. Do you understand me? Okay, вы понимаете меня. So I say to the student, do you understand me? Вы понимаете меня. And then the student can say, ah, that's the equivalent. So now when he goes to Russia, or in this case, I guess he's coming to America, and he wants to ask someone, do you understand me? He can say the English version, because he knows, oh, вы понимаете меня is, do you understand me? Вы говорите по-русски, do you speak Russian? So that is something you can use if you speak both languages with your student. It's a good way to begin if they know nothing, but maybe we don't know it, so how can we use that?
Mhm.
Fortunately, we have Google Translate and certain online platforms. I don't know if any besides the website I work for, which is paid, so we wouldn't use it for the literacy volunteers. Some have the translate tool built into the system, which is convenient. But if you're working with your student and you want to open up Google Translate on your phone or on a split screen, you can type in the phrase so they can see it in text, or you can press the speaker button so they can hear it. And they don't speak anything, for example. You can say, where are you from? No response, they don't know. So then you type it in and you show them and you say the equivalent. Where are you from? Oh, Riyadh. And then you say, I'm from Riyadh. Type in the equivalent, show them, I'm from Riyadh. So you're creating the link between the two phrases, the complete sentence in English, I'm from Riyadh, and whatever that is in Arabic. Riyadh is the capital of Saudi Arabia. Most of the students come from there. Okay, so any questions? All right, let's talk about language level, because probably you've heard about being a beginner student or being an intermediate student or so on. Here I have the ones that we used at the language school I worked at. Beginner, low intermediate, intermediate, high intermediate, and so on. In my opinion, that exists for expediency in the language school setting, because you have maybe 5 teachers and 100 students. So you're going to have 5 classes of 20. And you're going to assign beginner to the bottom level and so on. Maybe over years you can say like, oh, this person is at this level, and you call that low intermediate. But in every class, even if you're teaching an intermediate class, you have a spectrum. So this is too broad to apply to any one person, in my opinion. You don't know what words they have in their brain, how much English they've seen before and which parts. So its usefulness is limited, especially when you're the tutor. You will meet your student and you have to tailor how you talk with them. Same process when I meet the students online. So I met 1,000 students. I never once thought about, oh, are they intermediate or not? I had to think like, oh, what does this person know? And how can I communicate with them clearly? So here, the phrasing I have is, you can choose and control your words and clarity of expression to meet your students' needs. In job skills these days, there's a lot of emphasis put on communication. So talking about the benefit you're going to get from this line of work is probably you'll learn how to say things very simply, which is really nice. So what produces a good effect when you're tailoring the learning experience? I think these values, more important than most of the theory I've told you, more important than language level, is if you can, when you're communicating with your student, have respect, patience, genuine interest, open-mindedness, friendliness, and determination to understand the student, you will accomplish your communication goal, regardless of their level. Okay. And we're finished. But I'm going to ask you about what you learned. So before we start, any questions? All right, let me just check the time. Okay, we're doing good.
Timothy, yeah, just, I mean, question totally, maybe it's, well, it's really not off topic, but you'd mentioned, well, I mean, I did know that Riyadh was the capital of Saudi Arabia. You said that many of our, the students come from Saudi Arabia?
Well, this is where my platform draws a lot of its market. So I don't work for them, so I'm a contractor. So it's not necessary for me to tell you what the name is, but they have marketing campaigns in various countries. So where are they successful? The main Asian countries, so Japan, China, Korea, some from Vietnam, moving past, big span of land, Turkey and Saudi Arabia is their biggest student populations, and then Brazil. So it really depends where they're successful. So that's who I work with most of the time.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and by the way, everyone can call me Tim. You don't have to call me Timothy. Okay, so let's do our review. Question 1. How does a personal trainer help a client?
Motivate them and create a goal.
Very nice. There was 4 total, so we have motivation, and we had basically design a plan to get them where they want to go. It's the goal. Let's go ahead and go back to the slide. Okay, these are the 4.
Identify the position of the client.
Okay, so identify the position of the client.
I actually wrote all this down. I can't believe it. Wrong page.
Again, this video will be available when I get around to editing it. So you will have this as a reference if you want to see the slides again. But yeah, so our 4 ways that the trainer helps the client is that there's an identification of where the client is, what does the client want to do, what's their goal, and then plan a way forward, okay, using the gym concept of training. So you need continuity and intensity. And finally, don't forget the all-important element of motivation. At first, I didn't have this picture with the friendly faces. I had fire, because this is when I revealed the motivation. And I thought, well, maybe, I don't know what group of people I'm going to have, so let's just make it friendly. Okay, so let's go back. It's question 1. Question 2. What are the 2 main ideas of the gym concept of training? If you're interested, remember that video is going to be online also. Gym concept of training, let's go back. Here. Actually, I have it here. I'll go to this one. So, highlights. Continuity of training and intensity of training. Intensity is kind of relative, so you should increase the difficulty over time. That's like adding weights on the bar,
Mm.
using more advanced English over time. Okay.
I lost our video here, Tim. I'm sorry. I can still hear you though.
I see. Let me end the share, and then I'm going to reopen the share. Stop share.
Oh, there we are.
Okay, so we're here. I'm going to open the share again. That is this one. That's what I find cumbersome about Zoom is it gives me so many options. I'm like, which was the one I was using?
Mm.
Okay.
You got it.
Thank you.
Question 3. What is the most important skill to practice when learning a language?
Speaking.
Very nice. Okay. Question 4. I guess I can use the scroll wheel. How can you facilitate conversation?
Ask a simple question that they can relate to.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Okay.
How was your day?
That's right. Let me just check that numbering. Look at that. All right, let's do 5. Question 5. What is the audiolingual method?
Let's see, the phrase in both languages, or sentence in both languages, and the equivalent in both languages, I should say.
That's right. Okay. So question 6. How can you apply the audiolingual method? So I mean you in your situation, depending on the level of your student. You're working with them privately. Probably you don't speak their language. So how can you apply the audiolingual method?
Well, you said you could use Google Translate.
Exactly. So present it. Either press the speaker button or show them the text, and you can teach them the equivalent phrase. Okay. Last question. What is the assignment to complete before next week?
Read the document for next week.
And then to come with a question.
Exactly. Let me go back to the assignments page very quickly. Okay. For next week, look at both week 1 and week 2.
Mm-hmm.
Come with a question for both. Okay? And with that, thank you. We finished.
Ooh.
All right. So that was a great session, and we ended early. I know that probably it said 6 to 8. I don't expect it to be that long ever, but we'll see. Okay?
Well, you're a great tutor trainer there, Tim.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice
Yeah.
to see you.
So I'll let you guys free, and hopefully we'll have more attendees next time. And same time next Wednesday. Sound good?
Very good.
Yes, thank
All right.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
And
Leave. Bye.
All right, Tammy, are you still in the room?
Tim?
Yes.
Oh, let me stop.